my darling friends, welcome back to my channel. It is so good to see you all again. I am really looking forward to hanging out today. We're going to be playing in the studio, whipping up some really cute sewing projects. So go get your sewing machines ready, your hot glue or your fabric glue, whatever you choose to use. That's what we're going to need today to whip up some really cute fall and Halloween inspired projects. So let's go play. Our first project today is going to be just something really fun and cute that you will be able to use for your fall decor, your Thanksgiving decor, or even Halloween decor. So without further ado, let's go get started with project number one.
For this project, we are going to need just a few simple supplies. You're going to need a couple of patterns, which I will have these available for y'all as a free download, and you'll be able to find the link for that in my description box. You're also going to need a couple different types of fabric and some cotton batting of your choice. And then, of course, you're going to need your sewing machine or glue, however you choose to connect your projects together today. So, guys, let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and fold my fabric, and I am going to actually be making 4 of these. We're making some placemats today, and I'm going to make 4. So I folded my fabric together so that I could cut 2 at a time here. So you'll need 4 layers if you're cutting 2 at a time. Then I'm just going to go ahead and trace my pattern onto the fabric, pin everything together so that when I go to cut it, the fabric all stays together and we don't get any weird wonky shapes in the different layers of fabric. I hope that makes sense. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pin everything together and get it ready for cutting. All right, now that we have our pieces pinned together, we can go ahead and begin cutting out our pattern from the fabric. And the fabric that I'm using today is just some muslin. And I chose this because I really wanted a very neutral palette for this particular project. But of course, and I just happen to have this muslin on hand. But of course, you go ahead and do you and choose any fabric of your liking, any fabric that goes well with your decor style and taste. Now we're going to go ahead and trace our pattern out onto the cotton batting. And y'all will notice when you print these out that this particular piece for the cotton batting is substantially smaller than our outer pieces are. And there's a reason for that, and you'll see that in just a few moments. So I went ahead and folded my cotton batting into 4s again so I could cut all 4 out at the same time. And you'll only need 1 per pumpkin. So y'all, here's where I really messed up. So for whatever reason, I had it in my mind when I cut this out of the batting that we didn't need the stem on this. I don't know why I did that, but do as I say, not as I do here, and don't cut the stem off because you need it for the extra stability, because this cotton batting is going to give our placemats a lot of stability and some extra thickness. So now we can go ahead and sandwich the cotton batting in between our 2 outer pieces, and then I'll just go ahead and make sure everything is really well lined up and then pin it into place. When you pin this into place, you can kind of see that cotton batting through the top layer of our fabric. We're going to sew around that edge. We're not going to sew clear to the outer edge of this pumpkin because we're going to foray and fringe those outer edges. So I'm going to place my pins right on the edge of where the cotton batting is in the fabric. And I think you can kind of see that here. You can sort of just barely see it through, but you sort of see what I mean here. So I've got them all pinned into place, and that's where my sew line is going to be. And then I will go up and sew everything on the stem as well. And when I sew the stem together, I do sew that with about 1/4 of an inch inseam so we can fringe the stem as well. As I am sewing my pumpkin pieces together, I do try to be very mindful of the shape and try to maintain that shape as I am sewing, because you know the pattern had lots of curves and bumps in it. So I just am trying to be really careful as I go around all of those shapes so that we don't lose that cute little pumpkin shape as we sew. Now I'm going to go ahead and draw in our pumpkin sections, and I'm just going to freehand this. I'm going to just draw these in freehand, and I just follow the natural shape of the pumpkin to do this. And I'm going to use a pencil, and I kind of just use a light hand as I'm doing it, just enough that I can see the pencil marks for my sewing stitches. But once we get the stitching on, these pencil marks really will just disappear. Then I'm going to take it to the sewing machine, and I'm just going to use a straight stitch to sew mine down. But you could get really fun and creative with this and make zigzag stitches or any kind of decorative stitch that you choose, or you can go with the straight stitch, but you just customize this and make it your own. If y'all are gluers and you don't have a sewing machine, you could take, for this particular step, you could use a marker, like a colored marker, to draw in all of your little stitch lines, or you could also hand sew this or do some embroidery stitching on this. That would look actually so cute. The embroidery stitching would probably look a lot cuter than the actual machine sewn stitches. So just know that if you don't have a sewing machine, you can also do this step and just get creative with it by using some markers or some hand stitching. So here's how it looks all stitched. And you know, some of my lines are not very straight, but that's okay. I decided I didn't mind the wonkiness of it. It just kind of gives it some character and a little bit of whimsy. So after I did that, I also did some zigzag stitches across the stem just to add a little fun and fun flair to our pumpkin stem. Now we're going to go ahead and create some fringe on this pumpkin. So I am going to go all the way around the entire pumpkin and cut little slits. When you're doing this, make sure that you are really careful not to cut into any of your stitching. So I will just cut these little slits all the way around, and I think I did these all about 1/2 of an inch wide. And I just love that little fringe. I think it is so much fun. But we're going to take this even to an even next level, and I'm going to fray all of our fringe. And I started doing this by just kind of using my nail to fray these, but then I got smart and switched to using a file stick. Oh my gosh, I don't know why I couldn't think of that. A file board here. So I'm just using a file, sanding file to do this, but be really careful not to do too hard because you can actually tear some of the fringe away from the pumpkin. One of the things that I did notice though is as I was using the sanding file to do this, the fringe didn't curl up the way I wanted it to. So then I did kind of have to come back in with my finger and just kind of give it a little extra friction, I guess you could say, to create that curl. And y'all, I love how these turned out. I think this is just so cute. And I've got all 4 of them finished. And to finish off our little pumpkins, I thought it would be kind of fun to add some little personalized name tags to each one of the placemats. So I just have some of this printable fabric that I'm using that I cut out into little tag shapes, and then I'm going to stamp each one of them with like guest, mom, dad, you just personalize these and make them your own. But I'm going to use my clickable stamps to do this, and I will have the link for these clickable stamps in my description box for y'all if you are interested. To attach our little name tags to the placemats, I'm just going to use these cute little gourd pins that I have, and I do believe I got these ones on Amazon, so I'll try to find the link to these for y'all as well. I think these turned out just darling. What do y'all think?
All right, y'all, I really love how our placemats turned out. Aren't they cute? I just think this is a fun idea, and I think it would be so cute to incorporate these into your tablescapes for all of the holiday seasons, for your fall, just everyday tablescapes, Halloween if you celebrate Halloween, or even Thanksgiving. I think these would be so cute on the tablescapes. And I did think, I think they need a little something. I think we need to create a cute little friend to go with our placemats. So for project number 3, we are going to create some cute little ghosts. But stay with me, these aren't scary ghosts. They're going to be cute, playful, fun ghosts. So without further ado, let's just go jump right into project number 2.
For our next project, we are going to need just a few supplies. We're going to need this cute little ghost pattern with the tag, and I will also have these linked as a free downloadable pattern for y'all. That link will be in the description box. And then we're going to need a couple different fabrics. We're going to use some heat transfer vinyl, my heat press, and my Cricut Joy to create some cute little letters for this project. So to get started, I'm just going to go ahead and trace the ghost onto my fabric here, and I'm just using some muslin fabric for the ghost body. Once I get him all traced on, I'm going to pin everything into place just so the fabric doesn't move around as I am cutting, and then I will go ahead and cut him out. Oh, and I also forgot to mention that when I traced this pattern onto my fabric, I'm going to make 4 of these. So I'm going to cut 2 at a time here. So you can see I've got 4 layers of fabric. So that's why I pin it together so that the fabric doesn't move around. So when I go to cut it, all of my pieces will be the exact same. Because sometimes if you don't pin it together and your fabric moves around, you can have some of those back pieces end up being smaller than your top piece. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and cut this out. Once I've got it cut out, I do separate my pieces and then repin them before taking them to the sewing machine. Now that I have them all sewn together, I'm going to go ahead and flip them right side out. Now you could skip this step if you would like and just leave these as is, having raw edges showing, and then you could just fray your edges. But I wanted a little bit cleaner of a look, so I'm going to go ahead and flip mine right side out. And this was a little fiddly, y'all, because this is such a small little guy. He was a little tricky, but I just came in with a knitting needle that kind of just helped me press out all of those seams and get everything really nice and smooth. And then once I got all of those edges really well shaped and pressed out, I do take this to my iron and iron everything really nice and flat. Now we can go ahead and stuff them. And I did stuff mine pretty full because I wanted them to be somewhat on the firmer, heavier side. So I used quite a bit of stuffing in these, and then I used this knitting needle to kind of push all the stuffing into place, and it sort of bunches it together and makes it a little firmer. And the more stuffing that you use in these, the better they're going to hold their shape. So I really wanted these guys to have a very prominent, defined ghost shape. So that's why I was really liberal with all the stuffing. And getting the stuffing up into his arms was a little fiddly too, but just be patient and just keep working it because it will go in there. You just kind of have to use that knitting needle to kind of push it up into the arms. Now that they are all stuffed, we can go ahead and close up the bottom, and I'm going to just kind of press it all together and then fold those edges over. And they will kind of just tend to make their own natural seam as you do this and kind of fold over naturally with the shape of the fabric. Then I clip everything together, take it to my sewing machine, and close up all of the open bottoms. Now we can do some embellishing on these cute little guys. So we're going to give them some aprons, and I cut some little square swatches here, and I will have the measurements for those swatches in the description box for y'all. Then I'm going to go ahead and make a seam across the top because I want the top to have a nice clean edge. I don't want it to have a frayed edge. So I will go ahead and sew that seam down and then sew around the edges, and then I'm going to fray it because I do want the two sides and the bottom to be really well frayed. So I just use my fingernail to kind of fray all of these out. Now I'm going to kind of run a string through that top, the top seam that we created there, and I only sewed across the bottom so that I could run the string through this. And I'm just going to go ahead and use a safety pin to do this, and this is what we're going to tie our apron to the ghost Swiss. So I will string these strings through each one of our little aprons and then tie it onto our ghost. And as I was tying it, I did kind of bunch it up a little because I kind of liked that gathered, bunchy look. After we get the apron securely tied into place, I'm going to go ahead and tie a little bow in the back just to give it a little bit of cutesiness, and then I'll go ahead and trim up those ends. Now that we have all of our cute little ghosts dressed in aprons, we can give them some eyes, and I'm just going to use a Sharpie to do this. You could get creative with this if you want and do some buttons or however, but I just thought just some simple little black eyes with a Sharpie would be sufficient for these little guys. And to dress these cuties up a little bit more, we're going to make some cute tags that we're going to attach to their arms. So I'm going to go ahead and use that tag pattern that I provided with the ghost pattern and trace them onto my fabric. However, I did decide that these needed to be a little bit longer so that I could make a nice clean edge across the top, do a seam and sew an edge across the top. So I trace it on and then I come back about an inch above the top and just trace on a little extra there so that we can make a nice seam allowance. And you'll kind of see what I'm talking about here in just a moment. here, you can kind of see what I'm doing. So I kind of come back up to the top, trace a little extra on, and it makes the perfect amount of extra fabric to fold it down and create a really nice clean edge across the top of each one of our tags. So you're going to need 3 of these little tags per ghost. So because I made 4 ghosts, I cut 12 of these tags out. So now that they are all cut out, I'm going to go ahead and fold down the tops of each one of these to make about a 1-inch seam. So I fold it over just a little ways and then fold it the rest of the way to that line. And then I did take these to my iron and press that really well so I could have just a nice clean fold. This is where we're going to get the Cricut involved. So I'm going to cut out some letters that just say boo, and I created these in the Cricut design space. And remember, when you're doing this, I am using iron-on vinyl. So remember when you're doing this to mirror all of your images, and when you place your vinyl onto the cutting mat, put the glossy side down. So here's how they all turned out, and I went ahead and removed that from the little backing thing, and then I weeded everything out, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut each of these letters out individually so I can more easily iron them onto our tags. So I'm going to place them into position and then use my heat press to iron them all into place, and I set the heat press at 350 and held each one for about 10 to 15 seconds. After letting them cool for just a couple of seconds, I can go ahead and remove the protective film from each one of these, and voila, just like that, they are set and looking super, super cute. I love this iron-on vinyl, y'all. Now we're going to go ahead and create a little banner with our little boo tags, and I'm just going to string some jute through each of these to create the banner, and I'm just using a safety pin to do this. And you want to start with the last O and work to your B. So I guess it would be working right to left. So otherwise your letters will get strung backwards. After I get them all strung and spaced the way I want them, I do tie the ends in a knot just so that they can't move around on our string. And then we will go ahead and attach them to our little ghost's hands. And I'm just going to use some hot glue to do this. So I'll just dab a little hot glue on each one and then string it from each one of the little ghost's hands. As I was working on these, I got kind of a good idea or a different idea. So I decided to go ahead and undo all of those ones that I had previously done and then add a little bead to the end of our string. And I'm going to use that bead to kind of hold our banner into place and then tie a knot on either end of the bead. And then we'll go ahead and glue these back onto our little ghosts dangling from their hands. I think these little guys are turning out so cute. They are so fun. You could use them for so many different things too. You could use them as bowl fillers, on a tiered tray, a shelf, or like I'm going to do, use them as part of my table setting.
Oh my goodness, y'all, I love how these little guys turned out. Aren't they just so cute? I think these are going to be a fun addition for your tablescape, especially if you do like fun Halloween dinners. And I like the cutesy element to them. I like that they're not scary or spooky because that's really not my thing. I like the cutesy. So what do y'all think of these cute little boo ghosts? Our last project today is one that I got from my really good friend Linda over at FaithChick777. Y'all, she is amazing. This isn't a collab or anything, but I just love her and I love all of her ideas, and her designs are so cute. So I borrowed this one from my good friend Linda. I think we're gonna have fun with it. Let's go see how ours turns out. I'm pretty sure Linda's will be better, but we're gonna go give it our best shot.
For this project, I'm going to use this really cute tall skinny pumpkin pattern, and I will have this listed in the description box as a free download for y'all as well. Then I'm going to use some of these color fast printable fabric sheets. These just run through my normal inkjet printer, and I will have these listed in the description box as well for y'all. So I've gone ahead and printed the pumpkin pie recipe onto my fabric. Then I will cut my pumpkin out of this piece of fabric, pin it all together, cut it out, and I'm pinning it together just to hold them together. And I'm only making one of these, so you just need to cut 2 pieces, a front and a back. So these printable fabric sheets do have a backing on them. So before you sew this to your project, you want to make sure to remove that backing, because that backing is kind of a plasticky, thick plasticky piece. So once you remove that backing, your top piece will feel exactly like fabric. It is just cotton fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and tear my fabric from this because I wanted our little recipe to kind of have some frayed edges. So I just kind of cut a little nick in it so that I can easily tear it, and then I'll just tear around all 4 sides. Now I'm going to go ahead and just take my nail and sort of fray out all of the edges just a little bit. I don't go crazy with this one. I just kind of want a subtle frayed edge on our little recipe here. After fraying the edges, I decided it needed just a little something, so I thought, let's go ahead and antique the edges. Well, I didn't really like just the edges, so I ended up kind of antiquing the whole thing, and I am using my distressed ink pad to do this. Now I'm going to go ahead and sew our recipe to the top part of our pumpkin. You want to make sure that you don't do this with the 2 pieces together or you won't be able to stuff it. I'm just going to use a straight stitch to do this, and if you don't have a sewing machine, you can glue this down to your fabric, or you can hand sew your stitches as well. Now we can sew our pumpkin together, and I'm going to do this right sides together because again I don't really want a raw edge on this one, but you could leave the edges raw if you so choose. So I just line up my pieces, pin it together, and then I will take it to the sewing machine and sew it. However, I do want to make sure that I leave an opening on this so that we can stuff it later, and so I mark my edges where I want to stuff it with just some vertical pins like you can kind of see I do here. It kind of helps remind me to stop sewing there so that I can remember to leave that open for stuffing. So I've gone ahead and sewn this all together, turned it right side out, and got it fully stuffed. Now I want to close up that edge, so I'm going to just kind of turn those that raw edge inward so that it has a nice clean edge on it. I will pin it all together and take it to my sewing machine so I can close that opened edge closed. Now we can have a little fun with this pumpkin. I want to give him just a little bit of embellishing. I'm not going to go overboard. I just want a little embellishment on this, but you know, you do you. You can put as much or as little embellishment on him as you so choose. I'm going to just use some of these big giant maple leaves. I add a few on there, and then I'm going to put in some pine cones and some acorns, and maybe make a little curlicue or two, and probably finish it off with a bow. To make my curlicue, I'm going to use some of this copper wire, and I don't remember what gauge this is. It is very, very thin though, because I could cut it with my actual scissors. And I just cut whatever length I wanted, and then I'm going to wrap it around this paintbrush and pull it off, and I have this cute little curlicue, but I kind of want to bend it in half to give me like that double curlicued look. So I just bent it in half, put a little dab of hot glue on it, and then we can attach it to the top of our pumpkin pie recipe pillow. As promised, I'm going to finish this little guy off with a bow. So I think it is really, really cute, y'all, but in hindsight, I wish that I would have made the actual pumpkin pattern a lot wider. I think it's way too narrow, but I also feel like I should have printed the recipe a lot smaller so that it was also narrow, because it kind of just takes up the whole pumpkin and you sort of lose that pumpkin effect. In the end, it really kind of looks more like an acorn than it does a pumpkin, but we're gonna go with it. It's kind of cute.
All right, my darling friends, that is going to wrap up our projects for today. I really hope y'all enjoyed these. I sure did. I had so much fun creating them with y'all today, and I feel good about them. I really love the placemats. They just came out super cute, and I think our little ghosts are just darling. Our stuffed pumpkin pie recipe pillow, it could have used a little work. It's probably not my favorite, so I might have to retry that one a little differently. Anyway, y'all, I think we did pretty good for the most part. We got 2 out of 3, so that's not bad. 2 out of 3 for the win today. Thank you all so much for taking time out of your day to come and hang with me. I really do enjoy your company, and I look forward to seeing you all again next week. Until then, y'all take care, and I will see you soon. Bye. Hang out playing in the studio. Actually, that's not what I want to say. That just sounds so dumb. Get right into it. That's not what I'm trying to say. Got no idea. No idea what I want to say here. Just what? Just what? Oh my goodness. And that's a wrap.